All right, nerds. It's been a while. I got an email from Zach at the Yang headquarters, and he said, "Hey, you got to meet this guy, Sean, from Lobby 3." Oh, and look at this. We got another dude. Sean, I presume he's one of yours.
Yeah, it's Spence. He's a director with me at Lobby3.
All right, great. So yeah, well, welcome to Sean. And is it Spence?
Spencer, yeah.
Yeah, hey Spencer. So tell us, maybe we'll start with you, Sean. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go to Spencer, and then we'll talk about Lobby3's kind of genesis.
Yeah, so I don't know, where do I start? Physics originally, because I thought there was an answer to like the universe and everything. Fell backwards into DoD, did that for 10 or 12 years, depending on how you want to count. Left and wanted to do something very different. Started Data Community DC in Washington, DC. The last I checked, it was the largest active technical network in the DC area. Then my wife and I decided to have a kid, and she got into Y Combinator, and we took off to San Francisco. And then about a year and a half into being in San Francisco, the pandemic hit, and we had our second kid. So I was an angel CTO with my wife's Y Combinator startup with a newborn and a 3-year-old in a cigar box in San Francisco during the pandemic. It was fun. And then eventually we left to come here to Reno, Nevada, which we think is a Zoom town, right? Because if you could work from anywhere, where would you want to work from? And we're 20 minutes from the ski lift.
Sounds like a pretty good deal. Well, welcome to the show, Sean, and thanks for the introduction. What about you, Spencer?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm Spencer. I got into, actually, my background's actually in filmmaking, so also kind of unrelated to lobbying and advocacy originally. But I got acquainted with the technology through distributed computing, this program that Berkeley had, Berkeley Open Infrastructure Network Computing, I think. They have a variety of programs that use networked computing to run like research simulations to help researchers. And there was this one project that simulated protein folding, and it rewarded users in Gridcoin as like an incentivization mechanism. And that was my exposure to this technology. And I gradually got more exposed to the non-financial applications and the potential this technology has to radically transform how groups of people collectively make decisions. And that's the nature of my interest in Lobby3 and how I became gradually more involved with that. And that's what we're advocating for, uses of this technology to change how we can collectively come to consensus.
Well, that's a great segue to Lobby3. Like, how old is the organization, and what's the mission, and how did it get started?
Yep, sure. I can take that. That started a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, early 2022. Think. And then it was founded by Andrew Yang's team. The original website you can check out is lobby3.io that had the original messaging and the mission statement, bringing the voices of Web3 to DC. And it was an experiment in figuring out how DAOs, maybe we can get into what a DAO is, but how we can use this new technology to change how we advocate for the things we believe in, how we can start to bring this technology into the lobbying process, how can we do this compliantly. A lot of it was trial and error, learning, how do we square this with decentralized decision making? What the governance mechanisms we need to build in to facilitate this. Lobby3 was an experiment in doing that, and over the last year, we've come to more and more of a concrete understanding of what exactly it means to bring this technology into the sphere of advocacy. We've made mistakes, we've learned from them, and ultimately we've landed on something that we think can be pretty profound if we go about it the right way, this decentralized advocacy protocol we're working on. But then maybe there's other details that Sean will.
Sean, explain to the audience as if they were 5 years old what a DAO is.
Distributed autonomous organization. sometimes I like to say distributed agent organization, which is fits a little bit better with Lobby3. Distributed as in decisions are happening not centrally. They're happening by many different people. Autonomous, meaning that you're using some sort of software, something that doesn't need an intermediary, a human doing the sneaker net and running things back and forth. Sometimes I say agent just because we make a real effort to give some autonomy within a context, within a goal, within some sunset. Yeah.
What would be an example of that, like working? What would be like a example where this organization, accomplishes something through this decentralized approach?
The decentralized approach. You want to go?
Sure. Yeah, I would say that it's
on.
only been, I think, since 2016 or 2017 that DAOs as such have really been around. And because it was born in the cryptocurrency sphere, the financial sphere, most of the applications are directly, like the initial applications are directly or indirectly around finance, like managing decentralized finance protocols or kind of group investment initiatives, like people pooling money, being able to make it effectively. But kind of what we're talking about is the more generalized use case of it, of just now we can have groups of people using algorithms and collectively governing algorithms to facilitate collective decisions, and that can generalize beyond finance. But some of the difficulties we're realizing in terms of squaring this with the existing legal system is that for a legal entity to exist, to get nonprofit tax designation, to get a bank account, there needs to be certain aspects of centralization that are tough to square with this ethos of DAOs. And so, like, beyond financial applications, we're still, I think, at the early stages of learning what can be done by an organization of people that's organized horizontally like this. But I do think that there are meaningful capacities for operations that can be decentralized. In our case, we're hoping to decentralize the aspect of like sourcing policy positions and writing petitions and sort of gathering messages that we think represent grassroots or groundswell interests, and then being able to integrate that with more of a compliant lobbying process. I think that's something that can very feasibly be decentralized, but it's still like a big balancing act. Like, where can we decentralize? Where do we have to be centralized? And ultimately, it's still a big experiment, I think, this whole industry.
So let's take like a Web 2.0 example. Like there's like change.org, and people do the petitions, and they kind of rally others to chime in and sign and try and put pressure on other organizations to change. How do you think that would work in a Lobby3 world, or how would it be different?
Yeah, we noticed the other day when we put out the the Illinois bill, the DARA 3479, if I remember correctly. There's an open petition for it. It's on change.org. And right there at the bottom, it says donate, I think, $11 so they can promote it to more people, get more signatures.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of donate $11 so that way we can promote it more, we donate so we can support politicians that support us. Right? So we would pool all our money, and if the politicians did support us, we would vote as the support was sufficient, and then we would, do whatever we wanted with the money in order to say great things about them. We'd throw them a block party, buy ads, whatever we want.
Yeah, and this, I think, gets into the governance aspect of it, where, at least as I understand it, one of the main differences of the thing that we're trying to build out at DBox is that by donating to a campaign like this, like like a petition that lays out the vision for this cause, and then as people donate to it, as people contribute to it, it becomes more of a campaign. As you donate to it and contribute to it, you get governance rights over that donation pool, and that's something that I'm pretty sure I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure change.org and Web 2 versions of this don't have that kind of governance aspect. I could be missing something though.
Yeah, I don't think they do that. Yeah,
I don't think they do either.
That's what I think could be new about this, is that each now it's like imagine change.org, but that whole pool of signers and donors can kind of operate like a DAO to a certain extent, in that they get to collectively decide when to disperse the donation pool. Like if I donate to this cause, I'd be able to make a proposal for the other donors to vote on for when to disperse these funds. And then like one of the challenges is how can we facilitate these decentralized campaigns while still remaining compliant and avoiding liability. Like we don't want to be endangering people. We want to make sure that everyone is aware of what they're getting involved in and that we're minimizing these kind of risks. And I think there's still a lot of learning to do, but that I think is the main distinction.
Would the funds ever be distributed to the politicians directly in the form of
no. Absolutely not. That is a whole can of worms that we absolutely do not want to open up. Once you start giving directly to politicians, there's a whole separate set of laws that come in place. We just want something here that says, hey, there's a bunch of people that care about, whatever it is. DARA, they clean the water in Flint, Michigan, test everything in Ohio with the train derailment, or, the Restrict Act. We want somebody to talk about all the pretty extreme things that are in these different bills. And if you are willing to talk about it publicly, we're willing to support you. What that support looks like, it's up to the donors. It's up to the DAO. We don't actually have control of it. It's not like we can make a deal. We're just letting the politicians know, letting people know that there is a lot of interest here, and it is confirmed by their IDs. So we know that they're US citizens, possibly even in that politician's district. And two, these aren't just opinions of somebody that was, called up during dinner time and wants to give an answer and get off the phone. These are opinions from people who gave, $5, $10, $50 or more. So it's real information, actionable information. It's up to them to take advantage of it.
And the money does land in the hands of the DAO as an organization. Is that right? Like the $5 or $10, it's not like I'm a member of this DAO and I say like, yes, I want to support this politician because he's advocating in the same direction. I will personally deploy that money the way I see fit. It does go to a central pool, and then the DAO decides and votes how it gets distributed.
So it gets released from the smart contract once there's a vote, right? Mm-hmm. And then after the vote is there, it's a smart contract that's technically controlled by the directors of Lobby3, but we have a very strict mandate to distribute and automate decisions whenever possible. So if the DAO is willing to vote and talk about what they want to do, we have an obligation to fulfill that request, that desire.
And then there's also like differences we're figuring out between fiat donations and crypto donations. And like if someone wants to give with fiat, they'd have to go through the know your customer process, identity verification process of the third-party payment processors, whichever service they're using to actually facilitate this kind of online transactions with fiat. There's like accepting donations there, and we're trying to figure out how we can do that while still using the privacy preserving identity verification tools that we're trying to use, zero knowledge cryptography to verify identities. And there's like blockchain based zero knowledge ID solutions that are being built right now that are being beta tested that we're hoping to integrate into this to enable us to verify that this user is a US resident, or this user is a resident of this particular state, without requiring them to post their ID on a public database like a blockchain, or even send it to Lobby3. So I think that's another kind of radical layer of experimentation here, is we're kind of now able to verify like this donor is a unique person. This person isn't just making a bunch of accounts to donate a bunch of stuff and maximize their governance power or conduct a civil attack. Is what that's called. We're able to use zero knowledge technology to verify some of this. So I think that's one aspect that makes this kind of a complicated experiment. And then also, how do we accept fiat as well while still maintaining donor governance over things? And that this is something that maybe Sean can add more detail to, but we're thinking that there may have to be layers of ways that users can engage with this, where if they want governance rights, maybe they're going to have to get more acquainted with Web3 technology and get their wallet and make a donation in certain approved stable coins or something like that if they want governance rights, because that it may be tough to give governance rights to fiat donors, but a lot of this stuff is still yet to be figured out.
Sean, anything to add on that?
Yeah, the experimental part has a lot to do with the user experience. We know that the technology works, but we got to make it smooth. And we want to make it a seamless experience for whether you're donating fiat or crypto. You can engage as we can automate, right? And the real restrictions come when you have the tools in order to automate it. And in the case of Web2, sometimes it's actually a restrictive technology. Web3 has more capabilities to include people, include their voices, include their votes, to be confident in what's being said. And so, there's more privileges if the people are willing to go through the process of learning Web3 and getting a wallet and all that sort of stuff. So, we're doing everything that we can with the existing technology in order to make sure that the right people are donating, that there's plenty of governance, that it is determined by the DAO, by those people that contributed, because we want to see more light in the lobbying process. Right now you throw the money kind of down this dark hole, and you get some vague promises, and you get to audit things you don't really ever see. But here you get to determine, if, when the money is released, how it's being used, and more importantly, you're building a community. So, imagine that there's another 1,000, 10,000 people involved in this. There's a very good chance that you'll end up meeting them wherever it is that you go to hold that rally or that block party, or if there's, the Christmas event at the end of the year, or whatever, however it ends up being spent. You're building relationships.
Tell me a little bit more about the incubation. It sounds like within, Andrew Yang's team, and then now the kind of spin-off, and do you still engage with the Yang world or Forward Party in some way? Like anything you can share about that?
I mean, I'm here with the Forward Party in Nevada. They really like the idea of using this in order to help fund campaigns that they support. They're pretty close to, I think, running their own candidates. But as Andrew would say, it's not left, it's not right, it's forward, right? They are willing to support candidates that follow, that support certain topics of certain interests. And that's perfect for Lobby3 and DBox, because it is a topic-based funding and support mechanism. So yeah, the Nevada party, the Forward Party here in Nevada is very interested in it. And we have meetings with Humanity Forward, and they of course talk to Andrew. We've met him, but he's an interesting, important guy. He's there.
Yeah, and in terms of like formalizing associations with them a bit more, like that, there's still, like Sean just said, Humanity Forward's been playing an advisory role in helping us, get acquainted into this world. But in terms of setting up formal endorsements and associations, that there's still some considerations to be done, because DBox, this whole project we're doing is very experimental, and it very much aligns with Forward Party in my opinion. But in terms of like risk management and what's the risk profile of associating a public figure like Andrew Yang with this highly experimental technology, I think a lot of it is like it's still too experimental and still too early, and it's being developed to have like formal official associations. But like the advisory relations, and Andrew Yang was like a figurehead of Lobby3 since the
start.
They're
definitely curious. They're definitely curious. I mean, nobody knows exactly how this is going to play out. I mean, we're trying to change the way in which political campaigns get support and get funded indirectly anyway. They're not getting the money from us, but they are certainly getting the benefit of it. I mean, the whole point to have the money, that way you can help with re-election, get media support and all that sort of stuff. And but how is it going to be received? How is the argument made? What's the experience like? Are people going to get behind it? All those questions aren't answered yet, and we'll get there.
Yeah, this has been fascinating to kind of learn a little bit more about what you all are up to. Maybe I'll wrap with what you think success looks like, let's say a year from now for Lobby3. Are there some big milestones or big kind of launches or accomplishments that you have in mind that you think, okay, yeah,
we're trying to launch DBox for the 2024 election cycle, and success is a successful campaign, or 3 or 4 or 5, but at least one. Successful campaign means that there is money in of donations for whether it's the Restrict Act or something else, but the Restrict Act is certainly making its own bed. There's a lot of interest around that. It's a very scary bill. So we might just get all the support we need from something like that, or whatever comes afterwards. There are a number of politicians that are already speaking up for it. So once we get the system running, perhaps we can use this as our first experiment to see what kind of political support we get.
Same for you, Spencer. What would you like to see?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a great success for DBox and for Lobby3 in general. I mean, the actual organization that we're forming as a container to launch DBox and to manage our kind of instance of DBox, because like another aspect here is that DBox is going to be open source code, and it's going to be deployed on a distributed virtual machine, namely Ethereum, maybe some other blockchains. So it's something that can't be censored once it's deployed, and because it's open source, other people will be able to copy it and run their own instance of it. So that's another kind of radical aspect about this. But then we're going to be running our instance with our compliance needs and our regulatory considerations. But if someone says like, oh, this is really cool what they're doing, but they're too centralized, or I don't like how they're going about it, they can take DBox and fork it, run their own copy of it. But I think one of the even larger experiments here is how can an organization like Lobby3 build itself on a transparent distributed database where everyone can see the money moving out in and out of Lobby3 and all these campaigns. How can an organization like that construct itself in a transparent way and allow for decentralized governance and still be compliant and still make an impact? I think that's part of the larger experiment for me. So if we're around in a year and we're still operating this, and we're still able to represent a lot of these values of transparency and decentralization, that in and of itself, I think, is a win. And then having a successful DBox campaign on top of that would be wonderful.
Cool. How can people learn more about Lobby3 and DBox?
I would say go to the website, www.lobby3.org. Lobby3.io was the initial website. There's some outdated copy there, but if you go to lobby3.org, there's the Discord invite, there's the newsletter we have there, there's more information about DBox, there's all of our on-chain information if you want to see what's in our treasury and all of our transactions in and out. That's one of the kind of radical transparent aspects of these DAOs, is you can see their whole financial footprint. And so all the information you need is lobby3.org.
Yeah, an affiliate program of sorts. Affiliate isn't quite the right word. Please help me with the word, but bounties for distributing content. We are just finishing up some of the branding right now, and we're going to be launching a fundraising campaign here soon, where on the Gitcoin fundraising round that's coming up, should have a decision in the next few days. And then we'll have the site itself will be set up to accept donations. So, people helping out with that, there's some bounties there if you want to help out. It's not just about the money, helping to spread the word and get the education out there, but also the feedback of knowing what works and what doesn't is extremely valuable. And we give contribution badges, DBox contributor badges, to people who help out that way. And that gives you certain, VIP type rights in the system and being able to vote and being invited to exclusive events later.
Very exciting stuff. Well, this has been a great introduction, and folks can check out and learn more at lobby3.org. And did I forget to ask you anything else that you wanted to shout out or highlight before we wrap up?
Anything, Sean? I think this was a very succinct and intuitive conversation.
Yeah, it's a good conversation. I'm glad that there's so much warm reception around the idea of helping politicians to say what we mean and what we want and focus on the issues at hand. If you're familiar with that Princeton study that was done I don't forget if it was 5 years ago or 6 years ago, when it was exactly, they noticed that, regardless of how much popular support there is for a bill, Congress had a 30% chance of passing it. But if there wasn't the right corporate interests supporting the bill, it would drop to zero. Right? We want to change that, right? So the question that we have before us right now, and if the answer is no, we have to do something else. We have to pivot. But the question before us right now is, would a politician support something regardless of their party's interest? At what point do they start to deviate from their party because they get more support by supporting certain topics that people are clearly behind?
Well, I hope you guys figure it out, because definitely the current system is leaves a lot to be desired. So I'm glad that you guys are innovating and experimenting, and we'll have to have you guys back on, and maybe in 6 months or so, let us know what's going on. What's the progress?
Sounds good.
We'd love to. Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, I'm going to say thank you, and I'll wrap up with some show credits, but appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks, Tom. It's been a
Yeah,
pleasure.
thanks for having us.
Bye. All right. So that was the Lobby3 guys. What do you all think? Let me know in the comments. I'm a big fan of anything that improves the current system and introduces more voices to the mix. I think this one comes down to execution. Having played around with a little Web3 stuff in the past, my God, like setting up a wallet is painful. But I'm sure it'll get better. And that's not Lobby3's fault. That's just kind of blockchain stuff in general. So check out lobby3.org. And if you found this conversation useful or interesting, go ahead and hit that like button. And then if you want to see other guests or other topics covered in the future, let me know in the comments. I read all our comments. This channel is made possible by our members. So if you're watching on YouTube and you see that join link, that helps support me creating more of this content. And I want to give a shout out to our supporters. So let me start with our highest level, and that is our executive vice president level. So let me share my screen and give some people some credit. All right, we got Soldier One. He is a senior vice president, and he's been supporting this channel for 36 months. Thank you, Soldier One. At the VP level, we have Kristen Slevin and Bike. Thank you, Kristen and Bike. And then at the hardcore level, we have Gene, David, DK, Jack Lego, Kirsch, Mr. History, Mona, Vaughn, Yang, Robert, Dean, Galessa, Jay Perrin, AH and Dana, and Jason and Daniel and Mickey. And I want to thank StreamYard for helping us with some of the streaming costs. And then we have at the entry level, which is only $1.99 a month, cancel anytime. We have Lisa, Albert, Brandon, Sophia, Doris, Emerald, Ben, James, Elizabeth, Ira, Shoni, Dr. Jameson, William, Karen, Zemery, Mai, Brittany, Lori, Juana, Kevin, Nell, B, Jeremy, David, Nicholas, Mike, Aurora, Zig, and Roberto and Caleb. So thank you to these members for supporting the content. And while I'm here, should we just take a look at who's trending on OTP? Let's do it. So let's go to ofthepeople.us. And if you haven't voted, we have oh no, looks like we have a bug on the website. We'll have to go to OTP at a future live stream. I will send a message to our volunteer tech team saying, hey, OTP is down. But thank you so much for joining me this morning, and goodbye, nerds. Peace.